Bienvenidos a M2, soy Susana Moscatel y aquí estoy con dos maravillosos artistas. Lynn Ahrens, so nice to meet you.
Thank
so
you.
Nice to see you.
So nice to see you too.
Stephen Flaherty, is that right?
That is absolutely correct.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for talking to us. Let me just explain in Spanish what you do. What you have made happen here. Los maravillosos creadores de la música, de la letra de Anastasia, pero muchas otras cosas, y estamos hoy a punto de estrenar. I'm very, very excited to talk to you. We're here in the theater and we can hear the music.
Yes.
Yes.
Being rehearsed.
In
the theater.
You guys have worked together for 40 years, as you were just telling me.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So how did that start? I would love to know how that kind of collaboration starts, because it's a lifetime of beautiful things.
We met at a songwriting workshop in New York City in 1983, and in May of that year we wrote our first song, which led to our first show, which led to our second show, which led to the third, and here we are all these years later, and it never gets dull, and it's never the same day. Every day is different and every day is exciting.
It's so very exciting. Now we're here with Anastasia, so many years after the movie, obviously, after it going on Broadway, after it traveling the world. What do you expect to hear of the show in Spanish? Have you heard it?
Well, yes, we were here on Sunday night, and it was sublime. The Spanish language seems to be made for the music, and it sits on the music so beautifully. The translation is exquisite, and even though I'm speaking for myself, but I don't understand the Spanish necessarily, although I know the words, I know what they're saying.
Yes.
But somehow the emotions here, I think it's because Mexican people are passionate people, but also there's something about the language and the way it comes through in the music that is extraordinary and so moving. I mean, we were all, it's our show, we know it, and we were crying. So,
oh wow, it's incredible, right?
Yeah.
When you go back to something that you created, you were a part of, and then you've lived other things, you go back to it, it's like a second reading of your own life,
that
right?
Is correct.
It's a real gift, because you think you know everything about these people, meaning the characters and their lives, and in fact you find all sorts of new things, and you get to go deeper, and certain characters that you love that didn't get a chance to express themselves fully in the film, right, now in the stage version can. And so being able to just plunge right back into this story and these characters has just been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. It really is.
And usually when you have a movie, you have a certain amount of songs, and then you go to the theater and you have to have a lot more music, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So how did that happen? Tell me about that.
Well, we were young kids, and we were approached by 20th Century Fox to write the score for an animated movie that they wouldn't release the title of the movie, so it was a secret title called The Music Box at the time, and they hired us to write the music box, and we wrote about 5 or 6 songs, I guess. They all went in the movie, and the movie was quite successful, and so on. And then 25 years later, they decided they wanted to make a musical, and they came back to us, and we were so thrilled. And by that time, we had a lot of Broadway shows under our belt, and we knew what we were doing a little bit more. And we wrote 15 new songs. So,
wow.
So what's in this show is a very fully fledged score that was not in the animated movie.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when you're revisiting something, it's not only that you're experiencing where the characters left off, but also you're trying to match who you are in the present day with who you were all those years ago, and make sure that it seems seamless and that you can't tell which was the song that was written during this period and which was the new song.
Yeah.
And the ideal goal is to make it so the audience cannot tell. So everything feels all of a piece and seamless, and
Seamless, yeah.
And you're not sure, like, what is that like? When you go back to a certain part in your life, it's like you're from a different perspective, and it was as if we had never left.
Yeah.
Like we were just jumping right back in.
The story of the Romanovs is quite tragic.
Absolutely.
So I glimmer a lot of hope out of the way the story is told. But it still tells you the story of something that actually happened, right?
Well, it was so funny. I was saying to someone earlier that 2 of my grandparents were Russian, and they got out of Russia out of the oppression of my great-grandparents, well, my grandparents too, but my great-grandparents exited Russia just when Alexander II was in power. and they got their American citizenships, and it said that we will not pledge allegiance to anybody but the United States, and particularly him, and that's Anastasia's father.
Yeah.
So the whole story for me is very personal, and
Wow.
you know, and when you write a show, you don't know how it is going to land with a particular culture and a particular
Right.
audience. But in this case, I have just been through the Anthropology Museum and loved every minute, and I realized that the turbulent history of Mexico is so much like the turbulent history of Russia, that what can you learn from those moments, the terrible histories, the you know, joy, art, love, home, love, family, which is what our main character is looking for, and there's always that glimmer of perseverance and going on and making something of beauty. So you know,
that's really emotional.
I mean, I really took that away from this visit here to this beautiful city. I really thought, oh, this is the place for this show. They will understand it.
Absolutely. So what are you expecting Mexican audiences to take away from Anastasia? Because Lynn just...
I think that there's a lot of passion in the piece. I think there's a lot about who am I, what's my identity, where am I from. I was saying earlier today, there's a song that's very meaningful to me that happens about halfway through Act 1 called Stay, I Pray You. And it's where this group of people are in a large train station and they're all about to board a train. They don't know if they're ever going to be able to come back.
Right.
They might be saying goodbye to their families, to their culture, to this world that nourished them, and they might not be able to come back. And there's something about saying this is who we are that's, I think, really in the music and in the lyric. And it's one of the few times in the show where we have no orchestra. The orchestra has stopped, and it's just these human voices in a large space singing together. And I just find it very emotional, and I think that our cast, being Mexican, really are tapping into that about their own personal identity and heritage and culture and who are we. And I know it's a beautiful moment, and it's also a cast favorite moment.
I just want to say that I'm very, very emotional right now because I'm listening to you, and outside the orchestra's playing, and people are getting ready to start the show in an hour and a half. I know
there's nothing more exciting than in that orchestra tuning up, and that's what anticipation sounds like, and it feels just like that right now.
So I know what musical theater means to me. I talked to you before we started, and it's everything. How did you guys get into musical theater for you to be such an important part of the history of modern musical theater?
Oh, thank you so much. Well, we got into it in different ways. We met, as I said earlier, in a workshop, musical theater workshop, and we sort of saw each other across a crowded room of composers and lyricists, and he's good, well, she's good, and we met in that way.
My parents were looking for basically a way to thwart me, but like a creative way to thwart me, and they randomly picked music. They said, would you like to take music lessons when I was 7? And would you like to study piano? And I said, okay. It seemed like just like what the first thing that came to mind. And I just took to it like a duck to water. And I wrote my first show when I was 14. And I just kept writing and kept writing and kept writing, and I wanted to study more about it. But I was always interested in telling stories with music.
You have done so many amazing shows together. I just saw the revival before, like 4 years ago, Once Upon This Island.
Oh, you did.
It was so
Wasn't it gorgeous?
It was gorgeous with Leah
it.
Suanga, right? It was so gorgeous.
It was.
But you've done that. You've done Susical the musical. I love Ragtime. I saw it even the first time.
Wow.
And then I went back. But they're so different. They're so different musically and anecdotally.
We make a point of that, actually, because, there's so much to know and so much to learn and so many universal stories that can be told in different forms. And so we try never to repeat.
And also, instead of living one life in this lifetime, you get to live dozens. And that's so exciting. So I feel like I've lived many lives in this one life.
I agree so much with you of that, because when I go to the theater and something makes me feel overwhelmed with loveliness and feelings, and I feel like I'm ready for whatever comes next because I'm equipped with new things.
That's
Oh,
right.
that's good. That's a good way to think of
wonderful.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you guys creating
Yeah.
it must be like...
It does. It gives you a sense of joy and purpose and revelation, because you never know how a show is going to go. But even the ones that don't go well are incredible experiences, and the people we meet, you know, such as yourself, honestly, who
Thank
love
you.
the form and
I do.
who are appreciative, and you know, that's all part of it.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
you.
thank you.
Y gracias a todos ustedes por habernos acompañado. Esto es un deleite verdaderamente. Soy Susy Moscatel, nos vemos muy pronto.
Mi corazón